Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab. Now, let's begin this one. The interstate stretched endlessly ahead, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the December darkness. Dennis Dawson kept his eyes on the road, fingers drumming against the steering wheel as Christmas music played softly from the radio. He'd been driving for 6 hours straight from the oil rig in West Texas, pushing through exhaustion because he'd promised Emma he'd be home for Christmas Eve. His daughter's voice echoed in his mind from their last phone call. "You'll really be here, Dad? Promise." 9 years old, and already she'd learned to doubt promises. That was his fault. 3 years of offshore work, missed birthdays, Thanksgiving spent on drilling platforms. But he'd save enough now. This was his last rotation. After the holidays, he'd start his new job with a consulting firm in Houston. Regular hours. Weekends at home. A real father instead of a voice on the phone. The GPS directed him off the highway toward his ex-wife's neighborhood. Christine had remarried 2 years ago, some corporate attorney named Chad Ramos. They'd moved into a sprawling house in the suburbs, the kind with a 3-car garage and a pool out back. Christine sent him photos sometimes, probably to rub it in. "Look what you're missing. Look what we have now." Dennis didn't mind. As long as Emma was happy and cared for, his pride could take the hit. Their divorce had been brutal, but necessary. Christine had wanted someone stable, someone present, someone who didn't smell like crude oil and metal. He couldn't blame her for that. They'd married too young, had Emma even younger, and sometimes love wasn't enough when the bills piled up and one person was always gone. He turned onto Maple Ridge Drive at 9:30 p.m. The houses were decorated with elaborate light displays. Reindeer on roofs, inflatable Santas, trees visible through picture windows. The Ramos house sat at the end of the cul-de-sac, and Dennis frowned as he pulled into the driveway. Only one light was on, a dim glow from the kitchen window. No Christmas lights. No decorations. Strange. His frown deepened when he noticed Christine's Mercedes was gone. So was Chad's BMW. The only vehicle in the driveway was his old Ford pickup that he'd left with Christine so Emma would have a way to be picked up if needed. Dennis killed the engine and grabbed his duffel bag. Maybe they'd gone to a Christmas Eve service. Though that didn't sound like Christine. She'd never been religious. He walked to the front door and tried the handle. Unlocked. "Emma," he called, stepping inside. The house was silent except for a faint clattering from the kitchen. Dennis dropped his bag and headed toward the sound, his boots echoing on the hardwood floors. What he found made his chest tighten. Emma stood at the stove, standing on a step stool, trying to flip something in a pan. Her dark hair, the same shade as his, was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore pajamas with snowflakes on them and fuzzy socks. The kitchen was a disaster. Flour on the counters, an open box of spaghetti, a pot of boiling water threatening to overflow. "Dad!" She spun around, her face lighting up. Then, embarrassed, she quickly turned back to the stove. "I'm making dinner. I can do it myself. I'm not a baby." Dennis crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and turned off the burner. "Emma, sweetheart, where's your mom? Where's Chad?" "Gone," she said, not meeting his eyes. "They left this morning." "Left? Left where?" Emma hopped down from the step stool and walked to the refrigerator. There was a note held by a magnet. A smiling family photo of Christine, Chad, and Chad's 2 sons from his first marriage. Not Emma. Never Emma in the family photos. Dennis took the note, his jaw clenching as he read. "Dennis, we've taken the family to Paris for Christmas. Chad surprised us with tickets last week. Emma cannot come. There weren't enough tickets, and Chad's boys should have this experience with their father. Besides, she's not really part of this family. She's not blood. Diana made that very clear when we planned this. Emma is your daughter, your responsibility. We left money for food and told the neighbors you'd be here. We'll be back on January 2nd. Don't call. We need this family time. Christine." Dennis read it twice, his hands shaking. White-hot rage burned his chest, but he forced it down. Emma was watching him with those big brown eyes, trying to be brave. "I'm okay, Dad," she said quietly. "I can take care of myself. I've been practicing cooking from YouTube videos. And I did all my homework. I even wrapped your Christmas present. Oh, baby girl." Dennis pulled her into a hug, feeling her small frame trembling despite her brave words. I'm so sorry. I'm here now. Everything's okay. They stood like that for a long moment. Then Emma pulled back, and Dennis saw something shift in her expression. Not sadness now, but something calculating. Something that reminded him of himself. Dad, Grandma Diana doesn't know. I found her secret, Emma said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Want to see? Dennis's protective instincts flared. What secret, honey? Did someone hurt you? No, nothing like that. Emma walked to her backpack, which sat on the kitchen table. She pulled out a manila folder, handling it carefully. Remember when you asked me to help Grandma Diana clean out Grandpa Martin's office 2 months ago? After he died? Dennis nodded. His ex-father-in-law Martin Lester had passed away in October. Heart attack, or so they said. The funeral had been small. Dennis had come back for it, mostly to support Emma. Well, I found this box hidden in the back of Grandpa's closet, behind all his old shoes. Emma opened the folder. Inside were photographs, documents, and what looked like a journal. Grandma Diana came in and got really mad, said I shouldn't touch Grandpa's things. But I'd already taken pictures with my tablet when I heard her coming. Dennis sat down at the table, and Emma climbed into the chair next to him, spreading out the contents. The first thing that caught his eye was a handwritten will, dated 2 weeks before Martin's death. This is Grandpa's real will, Emma explained, her finger tracing the signature. See, he left me a trust fund, $300,000 for my college, and to help me when I grow up. Dennis's eyebrows shot up. 300,000? But look at this. Emma pulled out another document, a printed will dated 1 week later. This is the will that Grandma Diana showed everyone at the lawyer's office. See, there's no trust fund for me. Instead, it says all of Grandpa's money goes to Mom and her brother Uncle Perry. Dennis compared the 2 documents. His hands stilled when he noticed the signature on the second will. It looked like Martin's signature, but something was off. The loops were different. The pressure was uneven. This one's fake, Emma said matter-of-factly. I learned about forgery in school. We did a thing about how to spot fake signatures. Grandpa's hand was shaky after his first heart attack last year. But look, this signature is too steady. And the handwriting doesn't match his other papers. Dennis felt his pulse quicken. Emma pulled out more documents, bank statements, printouts of emails, and pages from what looked like Martin's personal journal. Grandpa was keeping evidence, Emma continued. He wrote in his journal that he saw Grandma Diana practicing his signature. Look, November 3rd, Dee was in my office today trying to copy my signature on blank paper. When I asked her about it, she said she was just doodling. But I'm not stupid. She's planning something. I need to protect the kids, especially Emma. Kay doesn't stand up for her own daughter. Someone has to. Dennis read through the journal entries, his blood running cold. Martin had documented everything. His suspicions that Diana was planning to forge a new will, his attempts to secure the original with his attorney, his growing fear of his own wife. The final entry was dated October 15th, 3 days before Martin's death. I'm going to confront Dee tomorrow. I've made copies of my real will and sent them to my attorney and to Dennis. Dee doesn't know about Dennis's copy. If something happens to me, at least Emma will be protected. Dee has been acting strange lately. She keeps making me special drinks, says they're good for my heart. But I feel worse every time I drink them. I'm not taking her drinks anymore. Tomorrow, I tell her I know what she's planning, and I want a divorce. Dennis looked at Emma. Did you say Grandpa died of a heart attack? Emma nodded slowly. That's what everyone said. But look at this. She pulled out a small envelope containing photographs. They showed prescription bottles, medications in Martin's name, but prescribed by a Dr. Dennis didn't recognize. I took pictures of these bottles in Grandma's bathroom. I looked them up. One of them is really dangerous if you give someone too much, especially someone with a heart condition. Dennis felt sick. Emma, did Grandpa ever send me any copies? Of his will? I don't know, Dad. Did you get anything in the mail from him? Dennis thought back. He'd been on the rig in October, mail forwarding to a P.O. box in Midland that he only checked when he was on shore leave. I need to check. I might have mail waiting. Emma carefully gathered all the documents. I made copies of everything and hid them in 3 different places. One set is in my locker at school in a fake book. One set is with my friend's mom. I told her it was a school project about genealogy. And one set is on a USB drive taped under my bed. Dennis stared at his daughter with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. You're 9 years old. You shouldn't have to think about things like this. I know what happened to Grandpa, Emma said softly. Grandma killed him, and she took my money, and now she's making Mom treat me like I don't matter. Her eyes filled with tears. Mom used to love me, Dad, before she married Chad. Before Grandma started saying all those things about me not being real family. Dennis pulled Emma into his arms. Listen to me. Your mom loves you. She's just lost right now. But we're going to fix this. All of it. Ow! Dennis looked at the documents spread across the table, at the evidence of murder and fraud, at the journal entries of a man who tried to protect his granddaughter and paid with his life. An idea was forming in his mind. Dark and dangerous, but justified. We're going to give Grandma Diana exactly what she deserves, he said quietly. But we have to be smart about it. We have to be patient. 3 days, Emma said. You smiled and said 3 days. That's what the note said. What happens in 3 days? Dennis smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who'd spent 20 years working dangerous jobs, dealing with dangerous men, learning how to survive in places where weakness got you killed. In 3 days, baby girl, we're going to show your grandmother that she made a very big mistake. They spent the rest of Christmas Eve making a real dinner together. Spaghetti with meatballs, garlic bread, and a salad. Emma talked while they cooked, telling Dennis about school, her friends, the science project she was working on. Normal kid stuff. But underneath it all, Dennis could see the hurt, the rejection, the knowledge that her own family had abandoned her on Christmas. After dinner, they sat in the living room, which had a tree at least, though it was sparsely decorated, and Emma opened the presents Dennis had brought. Books she'd wanted, a new art set, a necklace with a compass charm. So you always find your way home, Dennis explained as he fastened it around her neck. I like it, Emma said, touching the charm. Dad, are we going to get in trouble for what we're going to do? I don't know yet, Dennis admitted. Depends on how smart we are about it. Tell me everything you know about Grandma Diana's routine. Where she goes, who she sees, what she does. Emma thought for a moment. She goes to the country club every Tuesday and Thursday for tennis and lunch. She has a book club on Monday nights. She volunteers at the hospital on Wednesdays. She works in the records department, which Mom says is funny because Grandma doesn't like sick people. Records department, Dennis repeated. That was interesting. What about her friends? Who does she spend time with? Mostly her book club ladies. Oh, and she has lunch with Aunt Faith every Friday. That's her sister. Faith Fritz. Yeah, she's really mean too. She always says I look like a boy because I don't wear dresses. Dennis filed that information away. What about Uncle Perry? Your mom's brother. What's he like? Emma shrugged. He's okay, I guess. He doesn't live here anymore. He moved to California last year. But he always sends me birthday cards with money. Him and Grandma fight a lot on the phone. I heard him yelling at her once about Grandpa's will. Do you remember what he said? Something about how it wasn't fair, and why did everything go to Mom and not him? Grandma said Mom needed it more, because she has more kids to take care of now. Uncle Perry said that was bull. Emma stopped. A bad word. He said that was wrong because Emma is also a kid, but she didn't get anything. Dennis felt a flicker of hope. If Perry was already suspicious about the will, he might be an ally, or at least someone who could be turned into one. They talked until midnight, Dennis gathering information, Emma remembering details she hadn't even known were important. By the time he tucked her into bed, he had the beginnings of a plan. Dad, Emma said sleepily. I'm glad you're home. Me too, baby girl. Me too. Dennis sat in the dark living room, his laptop open, searching for information. First stop, the Midland P.O. Box records. He logged into his account and saw that, yes, there was a package from Martin Lester delivered October 16th. It had been sitting there for 2 months. He'd have to drive out there tomorrow to retrieve it. Next, he searched for Perry Richards, Christine's younger brother. Found him on LinkedIn, software engineer at a tech company in San Jose. Unmarried, no kids. Dennis found a phone number and considered calling, then decided against it. Not yet. He needed more information first. He pulled up records on Diana Lester. 62 years old, widow, no criminal record. Volunteer work at St. Catherine's Hospital for the past 5 years. Member of various clubs and charitable organizations. On the surface, a pillar of the community. But Dennis had learned long ago that surfaces were deceptive. The ocean could look calm, while riptides lurked beneath. He spent hours researching, digging deeper. He found Martin's obituary, the death certificate, heart attack, as expected, the probate records for the will. The fake will had gone through without any challenges. Diana had inherited the house and all of Martin's assets. Christine had received a lump sum of $200,000. Perry had received nothing, which explained his anger. But Emma, despite Martin's clearly stated wishes, had received nothing. Dennis's hands clenched on the keyboard. This wasn't just about money. This was about a child being erased, forgotten, deemed worthless because she didn't fit into Diana's vision of family. This was about a man being murdered because Dennis was certain now that's what had happened, and his killer walking free. 3 days. That's what he'd told Emma. But it would take longer than that to do this right. Still, 3 days felt like a good number. 3 days to gather everything he needed. Then he could start. He checked the time. 2 a.m. He sent an email to his new employer requesting a delayed start date. Family emergency. They'd understand. Then he sent a text to Glenn Mullen, his old foreman from the first rig he'd ever worked on. Glenn had retired 5 years ago, but stayed in touch. More importantly, Glenn had connections. The kind of connections a man needed when he wanted information that wasn't publicly available. The text was simple. Need a favor. Call me when you can. Glenn's response came 5 minutes later. Up late playing poker. Call now if you want. Dennis stepped outside into the cold December night and dialed. Dennis Dawson. Glenn's gravelly voice answered. Haven't heard from you in months. What's wrong? I need information on someone. Deep background. Criminal connections, if they exist. Financial records if you can get them. This personal or professional? Personal. It's about Emma. Glenn's tone sharpened. Someone hurt your kid? Someone hurt my kid and killed her grandfather. And I'm going to make them pay for it. A long pause. You sure about this? Once you start down this road. I'm sure. All right. Give me the name. Dennis provided Diana's information, along with everything else he'd learned. Glenn listened without interrupting, then whistled low. Well, fraud and possible murder. That's heavy, Dennis. You thought about going to the police. With what? Everything Emma found would be circumstantial at best. And even if they investigated, even if they found something, what happens? Diana gets arrested, maybe serves time, maybe doesn't. Meanwhile, Emma's caught in the middle of a media circus. Her mother's life is destroyed, and Diana's lawyers tie everything up in court for years. So you want to handle it yourself. I want justice. Real justice. The kind that makes sure Emma gets what she's owed and that Diana pays for what she's done. Give me 48 hours, Glenn said. I'll see what I can find. Thanks, Glenn. Dennis? Be careful. People who kill once can kill again. After they hung up, Dennis went back inside. He checked on Emma, sleeping peacefully, then laid down on the couch. But sleep wouldn't come. His mind was racing, planning, calculating risks and rewards. Diana Lester had made 2 fatal mistakes. First, she'd underestimated Martin's love for his granddaughter. Second, she'd assumed Dennis was just another deadbeat dad who wouldn't care or wouldn't act. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Christmas morning arrived gray and cold. Dennis woke to find Emma already up, sitting at the kitchen table with her folder of evidence spread out again. Merry Christmas, Dad. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. What are you doing? Making a timeline. She'd drawn a chart on notebook paper, listing dates and events. I thought it might help. See? Grandpa's first heart attack was in March. Grandma started volunteering at the hospital in April. Grandpa wrote in his journal that his drinks tasted funny starting in August. He died in October. Grandma got the fake will probated in November. Dennis studied the timeline. When did your mom marry Chad? March. Right after Grandpa's first heart attack. And when did Grandma Diana start saying things about you not being real family? Emma's face fell. Around May, I think. After school got out. She said it would be better if I went to summer camp instead of staying with them. Mom got upset and said no, but then Grandma kept saying it, and then Mom started saying maybe it would be good for me to have independence. So right after she started volunteering at the hospital, Dennis mused. Emma, do you remember what medications Grandpa was taking? For his heart. There was a bunch. Let me check my photos. Emma pulled out her tablet and scrolled through. Here, these were the ones in Grandma's bathroom. Dennis wrote down the names and dosages. One of them, Digitalis, made his blood run cold. He remembered a case from years ago, guys on the rig talking about a murder investigation in Louisiana where a woman had killed her husband by giving him too much of his heart medication. Digitalis poisoning could look like a natural heart attack. Dad, what are you thinking? I'm thinking Grandma is smarter than I gave her credit for, but not smart enough. He looked at his daughter's timeline, her careful documentation. You know what you are? You're an investigator. A detective. Emma brightened. Really? Really? And every good detective needs a partner. Dennis held out his hand. Partners? Emma shook it solemnly. Partners. They spent Christmas Day doing normal things. Watching movies, making cookies, playing board games. Dennis wanted Emma to have at least one good memory from his holiday. But underneath the normalcy, they were both aware of the ticking clock. That evening, Dennis's phone buzzed. Glenn had sent an email with attachments. Subject line, found some interesting things. Dennis waited until Emma was in bed before opening it. Glenn had been thorough. Financial records showed that Diana had significant gambling debts. Over $100,000 owed to various casinos in Louisiana and Oklahoma. Credit card statements showed regular charges at high-end stores, spa treatments, luxury items. Martin's life insurance had paid out $250,000, which explained how Diana had paid off most of her debts. But the most interesting part was buried in the hospital records that Glenn had somehow obtained. Diana had access to the pharmacy inventory system through her volunteer work. And in the weeks before Martin's death, there had been several discrepancies in the Digitalis records, small amounts that went missing attributed to administrative errors. Glenn's note at the bottom read, "Your instincts were right. This woman is dangerous. I also found something else. She's had 3 husbands. First one died in a car accident. Second one died of heart failure. Third one is Martin. Guess she has a type. Be very careful." Dennis sat back, his mind working through the implications. Diana wasn't just a murderer. She was a serial killer, preying on wealthy men and then killing them for inheritance money. Martin had just been the latest victim. He forwarded the relevant documents to his own secure cloud storage, then created 3 separate backup copies on encrypted drives. Then he began drafting a comprehensive report, documenting everything in chronological order. The timeline of events, Emma's evidence, Glenn's findings, his own observations. By 3 a.m., he had a 100-page document that laid out exactly what Diana had done and how she'd done it. The evidence was circumstantial in places, but taken as a whole, it painted a damning picture. Now he needed to decide how to use it. Day 2 arrived with fresh snow. Dennis drove out to Midland, leaving Emma with a neighbor, a kind woman named June Knapp, who'd been horrified to hear that Emma had been left alone for Christmas. Mrs. Knapp had immediately invited Emma to stay with her family until Dennis returned and had made pointed comments about some people not deserving children. The drive to Midland took 3 hours. Dennis retrieved the package from his P.O. box, a thick manila envelope addressed in Martin's handwriting. Inside was everything. The original will, signed and notarized, a letter to Dennis explaining his suspicions about Diana, copies of his journal entries, and a handwritten note that simply said, "Please protect Emma. She deserves better than this family has given her." Dennis sat in his truck in the parking lot, reading Martin's letter twice. The old man had known he was in danger. He prepared for it, but in the end, it hadn't been enough to save him. On the drive back, Dennis called Perry Richards. It was time to bring in an ally. "Hello." A cautious voice answered. "Perry, this is Dennis Dawson, Christine's ex-husband." A long pause. "I know who you are. What do you want?" "I want to talk to you about your father's will. The real one." Another pause, longer this time. "What do you mean, the real one?" "I mean the will your father actually wrote, leaving a trust fund to Emma and dividing his assets evenly between you and Christine." Not the forgery your mother pushed through probate. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You called your mother about it. You knew something wasn't right. You knew your father wouldn't cut you out completely. Silence. Then, what do you know about that? Because I have the original will. And I have evidence that your mother forged a new one. And I have evidence that she killed your father to make sure he couldn't stop her. The sound of breathing on the other end. That's a serious accusation. I have proof. Photos, documents, medical records, journal entries. Everything. Your father sent it to me before he died, and Emma found more evidence afterward. We can prove what happened. Why are you telling me this? Because you have a choice to make. You can keep pretending everything is fine, keep letting your mother control everything, and stay disinherited. Or you can help me bring her to justice and get what you're actually owed. Perry's voice cracked. I knew something was wrong. Dad wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have cut me out. We had our problems, but he wouldn't. He didn't. Your mother did. And she left Emma out entirely, even though your father specifically wanted to provide for her. Jesus Christ. A long exhale. What do you need from me? Information. Access. Your mother trusts you, or at least she thinks she can control you. I need you to help me get evidence that will stand up in court. Real evidence, not just circumstantial. Can you do that? If what you're saying is true, if she really killed Dad. Perry's voice hardened. Yes, I'll help. What's the plan? Dennis smiled. The plan is to give your mother enough rope to hang herself. But we need to be smart. Meet me tomorrow. I'll show you everything. They arranged to meet at a diner halfway between Houston and San Jose. Perry was flying anyway, coming home for New Year's. After they hung up, Dennis felt the first real surge of hope. With Perry's help, they could get inside access to Diana's life, her records, her secrets. He picked up Emma from Mrs. Knapp's house, enduring another round of thinly veiled criticism about Christine's choices. That daughter of yours is a treasure, Mrs. Knapp said. Smart as a whip and polite as can be. It's shameful how some people treat their own blood. Thank you for watching her, Mrs. Knapp. Anytime. And Dennis? If you need anything at all, you just ask. I don't hold with what happened here. It's not right. In the truck, Emma buckled her seatbelt and looked at him expectantly. Did you get Grandpa's package? I did. You were right about everything. And I talked to Uncle Perry. He's going to help us. Really? But I thought he was on Grandma's side. He was. But now he knows the truth. Sometimes people just need the right information to make the right choice. Is that what we're doing? Giving people information? Dennis glanced at his daughter. We're doing more than that, baby girl. We're showing people who they really are. And sometimes, when people see who they really are, they destroy themselves. Perry Richards arrived the next morning looking haggard. He was younger than Christine by 5 years, 33 to her 38, with the same sharp features and dark hair. But where Christine had always been high-strung and image-conscious, Perry had a more laid-back California vibe. They met at the diner as planned, Emma sitting in the booth with them. Perry stared at his niece for a long moment. I'm sorry, he said finally. I should have fought harder for you. I should have done more. Emma shrugged. It's okay. You're helping now. Dennis spread out the documents on the table. Perry read through everything, his expression growing darker with each page. When he reached Martin's letter, tears streamed down his face. I talked to him the day before he died, Perry whispered. He called me, said he had something important to tell me. I said I was busy, I'd call him back. I never did. He looked up at Dennis. If I just talked to him, you couldn't have known. I should have known. There was always something off about her. The way she went through money. The way she manipulated people. Dad used to say she could sell ice to Eskimos, but I always thought he meant it as a compliment. Perry wiped his eyes. What do you need me to do? Dennis leaned forward. Your mother has been careful. She's covered her tracks. But people like her, they get cocky. They start to believe they're untouchable. We need to make her think she's won. Make her think she's safe. And then we need to get her to confess. Confess? How? By giving her something she wants more than safety. Money. There's a life insurance policy on your father. $500,000. Your mother is the beneficiary, but the insurance company has been slow to pay out. They're investigating the circumstances of death. Perry nodded slowly. I remember. Mom's been furious about it. She keeps calling them, threatening to sue. Exactly. So here's what we do. You tell her you found a way to speed up the process. A lawyer who specializes in insurance claims. Someone who can pressure the company to pay. But this lawyer needs complete honesty. Needs to know everything about Dad's death, his health, his medications. Everything. And you'll be recording it? Every word. But it has to be her idea to confess. She has to think she's safe, that the lawyer is on her side. That's where you come in. You have to sell it. Make her believe this is her ticket to getting that money. Perry thought for a moment. There's something else. Mom's been dating again. Some rich guy from the country club, Jesse McGuire. I met him at Thanksgiving. Dad's barely been dead 2 months, and she's already lining up the next victim. Emma's eyes went wide. She's going to kill him too? Not if we stop her first, Dennis said. Perry, do you think you could get access to her house? Her computer? Maybe. I have a key. But she'd notice if I just showed up. Tell her you need to pick up some of Dad's things. Old photos, mementos. Make it emotional. Meanwhile, you look for anything that might help us. Records, correspondence, anything that shows a pattern. They spent the next 2 hours planning every detail. Perry would fly back to Houston that evening, go to Diana's house the next day. Emma had drawn a map of the house layout, showing where Diana kept her important documents. A locked file cabinet in her home office. She doesn't know I know the combination, Emma said proudly. But I watched her open it once. It's Grandpa's birthday. By the time they left the diner, they had a solid plan. Perry would gather evidence, Dennis would build the case, and Emma would stay safe with Mrs. Knapp while the adults did the dangerous work. Thank you, Perry said as they walked to their cars. For giving me a chance to make this right. Just don't get caught, Dennis warned. If your mother suspects anything, I'll be careful, I promise. They shook hands, and Perry knelt down to hug Emma. You're braver than all of us, you know that. Emma smiled. Dad says being brave just means doing what's right even when you're scared. Your dad's a smart man. The next 36 hours were tense. Dennis waited for word from Perry while keeping Emma distracted with normal activities. They went to a movie, played in the park, did some after-Christmas shopping. Emma never complained, never asked when her mother was coming back. She seemed almost relieved to be away from that house, from the constant reminder that she wasn't wanted. On December 28th, Perry called. I got it, he said, breathless. All of it. Jesus Christ, Dennis, you're right. It's worse than we thought. What did you find? Financial records going back 20 years. Evidence of fraud, insurance scams, forged documents. And photos. She kept photos of her previous husbands. There's notes in the margins. Heart medication overdose, mimics natural death. She literally documented her own murders. Dennis felt ice in his veins. She kept evidence of her crimes? Like trophies. I think she gets off on it. There's a journal too, hidden in the file cabinet. It's not like Dad's journal. It's more like instructions. How to choose a target, how to gain their trust, how to kill them and make it look natural. Dennis, this woman is a monster. Did you get everything? Photographed every page. I'm uploading to the cloud now. But Dennis, there's something else. I found letters. Letters from Christine. A chill ran through him. What kind of letters? From last year. Christine knew. She knew Mom was planning to kill Dad. There's a letter where Mom talks about needing Christine's help, needing her to keep Dad distracted while she prepared things. Christine wrote back saying she'd do whatever was needed for the family. Dennis closed his eyes. Emma can't know about this. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I'm sorry. I know you still care about her. I care about Emma. Christine made her choice. Dennis forced himself to focus. Did you set up the meeting with your mother? The fake lawyer? Tomorrow at 2. I told her I found someone who can definitely get the insurance money. She's excited. She even asked if I thought we should celebrate afterward. Good. I'll have everything ready. You just need to get her talking. Dennis? What happens after we expose her? I mean, Christine goes down too, right? If she was involved. Christine gets what she deserves. Just like your mother. Just like everyone who hurt Emma. After they hung up, Dennis sat in the darkness of the living room, listening to Emma's soft breathing from the bedroom. He thought about Christine, the woman he'd loved, the woman who'd given him a daughter. Thought about how she'd changed, how Diana had poisoned her, turned her into something cruel and selfish. Maybe Diana hadn't changed her at all. Maybe Christine had always been capable of this, and it just took the right circumstances to bring it out. Either way, it didn't matter now. What mattered was Emma. Protecting her, getting her justice, making sure she never had to wonder again why her own family didn't love her. His phone buzzed. A text from Glenn, heard from Perry. You're playing a dangerous game. Be ready for blowback. Dennis responded, I'm ready. But was he? Tomorrow, everything would come to a head. Tomorrow, they'd get Diana's confession on record. Tomorrow, the truth would finally come out. Tomorrow, justice will be served. He thought about Martin's last letter. Please protect Emma. She deserves better than this family has given her. I'm trying, Martin, Dennis whispered to the darkness. I'm trying. December 29th dawned clear and cold. Dennis dropped Emma off at Mrs. Knapp's house early, giving the older woman a brief explanation that he had some legal matters to attend to regarding Emma's grandfather. Mrs. Knapp, bless her heart, asked no questions. She just pulled Emma into a hug and promised to make hot cocoa and cookies. Dennis drove to the office building Perry had rented for the day, a small suite in a professional complex, the kind of place where lawyers and accountants worked. Perry had even printed up fake business cards for Morgan & Associates, insurance litigation specialists. I'm Adrian Howell, Glenn Mullins said, appearing in a suit and tie that made him almost unrecognizable. Partner at Morgan & Associates. Been practicing insurance law for 20 years. You clean up nice, Dennis said, shaking his hand. I'll take that as a compliment. Perry briefed me on everything. You sure this woman's gonna fall for it? She's greedy and arrogant. That's a deadly combination. She'll fall for it. They had 3 cameras hidden in the office, one in a smoke detector, one in a decorative plant, one in the overhead light fixture. Audio recording via multiple backup devices. Everything would be captured, documented, admissible in court. Perry arrived at 1:30, looking nervous. She's on her way. She thinks I'm meeting her here to introduce her to my friend who's a lawyer. You did good, Dennis told him. Just remember, act like you believe her. Act like you're on her side. Make her feel safe. At exactly 2 p.m., the door opened. Diana Lester walked in, and Dennis got his first good look at the woman who'd killed his daughter's grandfather. She was elegant and poised, mid-60s but could pass for mid-50s. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect smile. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd never been caught, never been questioned, never been denied. Perry, darling, she said, kissing her son's cheek. Then, turning to Glenn, and you must be Mr. Howell. Perry's told me so much about you. Mrs. Lester, please have a seat. Glenn gestured to the chair across from his desk. Dennis watched from the next room via video feed, recording everything. Perry tells me you're having trouble with your late husband's life insurance claim? Trouble is an understatement, Diana said, settling into the chair. Those bloodsuckers at the insurance company have been stalling for months. They keep asking questions, requesting more documents, as if my husband's death certificate isn't enough. I understand your frustration. Unfortunately, when the claim amount is substantial, insurance companies often drag their feet. They're hoping you'll settle for less or give up entirely. But I specialize in making sure that doesn't happen. That's what Perry said. How quickly can you get this resolved? That depends on several factors. I need to understand everything about your husband's death. The circumstances, his medical history, any factors that might give the insurance company reason to investigate. I need complete honesty from you, Mrs. Lester. Anything less, and I can't help you. Diana smiled. Of course. What do you want to know? Let's start with his health. Was your husband in good health before his death? Martin had a heart condition. He'd had 1 heart attack already about 8 months before he died. He was on medication for it. What medications specifically? Diana rattled off a list. Glenn took notes, nodding professionally. And was he compliant with his medication regimen? Oh yes, very compliant. I made sure of it. I gave him his pills every day, made sure he took them exactly as prescribed. You personally administered his medications? Yes. Martin could be forgetful, so I took over that responsibility. Dennis watched as Glenn leaned back, steepling his fingers. Mrs. Lester, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. The insurance company has raised some concerns about the circumstances of your husband's death. They've noted that he died relatively suddenly, despite being under regular medical care. They've also noted that the autopsy was waived and the death certificate was signed by a family physician rather than after a full examination. These are red flags for insurance investigators. Diana's smile didn't waver. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm telling you that the insurance company is suspicious. They're wondering if there's any possibility that Martin's death wasn't entirely natural. And if they find any evidence to support that theory, they'll deny the claim entirely. Perry spoke up, his voice shaking slightly. Mom, Mr. Howell is on our side. But he can't help us if he doesn't know everything. If there's anything at all that might come out, we need to know now. Diana looked at her son for a long moment. You mean, did I kill your father? Is that what you're asking? The room went silent. Dennis held his breath. Perry, Diana said gently, I'm your mother. You know me. Do you really think I could do something like that? I don't know what to think, Perry said, and his emotion was genuine. Dad's dead. You're dating again already. Bill changed right before he died. Emma got nothing. I got nothing. It all seems convenient, Diana finished. She laughed, a brittle sound. I suppose it does, doesn't it? Well, let me tell you both something. Martin was going to divorce me. He'd found out about my debts, about some poor choices I'd made. He was furious. Said he was going to cut me off, leave everything to you children and that granddaughter of his. Emma, Perry said. Her name is Emma. Yes, Emma. Martin was obsessed with that child. Couldn't see that she was pulling the family apart. Christine barely had time for her own family because she was always worried about Emma this, Emma that. It was exhausting. So what did you do? Glenn asked quietly. Diana sighed. I did what I had to do. Martin was going to ruin everything. 50 years of marriage, and he was going to throw it away over some financial problems and a grandchild who wasn't even really family. She's your granddaughter, Perry said, his voice breaking. She's Dennis's daughter. From his first marriage, or whatever it was. Not blood. Not real family. Martin should have understood that. Diana's voice hardened. So yes, I helped him along. Adjusted his medications. Made sure his heart gave out before he could change the will back or file for divorce. I did what any sensible woman in my position would do. Dennis felt rage wash over him, but he forced himself to remain still. Keep recording. Get everything. You killed him, Perry whispered. I liberated us, Diana corrected. From a man who was going to destroy this family over sentimentality and pride. And I made sure we were all taken care of. You got nothing in the final will because you'd been difficult, Perry. You'd questioned me, challenged me. But I planned to give you money eventually, once you learned your place. My God, Glenn said. Mrs. Lester, you do understand what you're telling me. I understand that you're a lawyer who wants to get paid. And I'm telling you exactly what happened so you can prepare for whatever the insurance company throws at us. I need that money, Mr. Howell. I needed to pay off the last of my debts and to fund my new life with Jesse. He doesn't know about my financial situation, and I need to keep it that way. Jesse McGuire, Glenn said. Your new boyfriend. My fiancé, actually. He proposed last week. We're planning a spring wedding. Diana smiled. Jesse's quite wealthy. Made his fortune in real estate. He's also 73 years old with a heart condition. I imagine I'll be a widow again in a few years, but this time with a much larger inheritance. Perry stood up abruptly. I can't listen to this. Oh, Perry, don't be dramatic. This is how the world works. Women like me, we survive. We adapt. Your father understood that in his way. He just lost sight of it at the end. You're a monster, Perry said. Diana stood as well, smoothing her skirt. I'm a realist, and I'm your mother. You'll help me get this insurance money, or I'll make sure Christine knows you were behind this whole meeting. I'll tell her you were trying to steal my money, turn the family against me. She'll believe me. She always does. Actually, Dennis said, stepping into the room, I don't think she will. Diana spun around, her face going white. Who are you? I'm Dennis Dawson, Emma's father, Martin's friend, and the man who's been recording every word you just said. Diana's eyes darted to the door, but Glenn moved to block it. Perry pulled out his phone, holding it up to show he'd been recording as well. You set me up, Diana breathed. You murdered your husband. Dennis said coldly. You stole from my daughter. You tried to kill her spirit, make her think she was worthless. And you were planning to do it all again to some other poor fool who trusted you. This is entrapment. Nothing I said will hold up in court. Actually, Glenn said it will. You weren't coerced. You weren't under duress. You voluntarily confessed to murder, fraud, and conspiracy. In Texas, that's more than enough for an arrest warrant. Perry, Diana said, turning to her son. You can't let them do this. I'm your mother. You killed my father, Perry said, tears streaming down his face. You're not my mother anymore. You're a stranger. Diana lunged for the door, but Dennis caught her arm. She struggled, then went limp. Fine, she said. Fine, but you'll all pay for this. Christine will never forgive you. Emma will never have a real family. And you, she looked at Dennis with pure hatred. You'll always be the deadbeat dad who abandoned his daughter. You'll always be the failure. Dennis smiled. Maybe, but I'll be a failure who stopped a serial killer. I can live with that. The police arrived within 20 minutes. Dennis had already contacted them, already prepared them for what they'd find. They arrested Diana Lester on charges of murder, fraud, and conspiracy. They also brought in Christine for questioning based on the letters Perry had found. Dennis didn't stay to watch. He picked up Emma from Mrs. Knapp's house and drove her to a hotel. They'd stay there until the house was sorted out, until Christine returned from Paris to face what she'd done. Is it over? Emma asked quietly. The hard part is, Dennis said. Now comes the aftermath. Will Mom go to jail? I don't know, baby girl. Depends on how much she knew, how much she helped. The lawyers will figure it out. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't think I want to see her. Is that okay? Dennis pulled her close. That's more than okay. You get to decide who's in your life now. What about Uncle Perry? Uncle Perry did the right thing. He helped us. I think he wants to be in your life if you'll let him. Okay, Emma said. I'd like that. Over the next few days, the story exploded. News outlets picked up the tale of the grandmother who'd murdered multiple husbands, the granddaughter who'd uncovered the truth, the father who'd orchestrated the confession. Dennis shielded Emma from most of it, but some details got through. Christine returned from Paris to find herself under investigation. The letters proved she'd known about Diana's plans, but her lawyer argued she'd been manipulated, abused, gaslit. In the end, she pled guilty to being an accessory after the fact and received probation, community service, and mandatory therapy. She didn't try to contact Emma. Dennis didn't know if that was mercy or cowardice. Diana's trial was swift. With the confession and the evidence Perry had gathered, the prosecution had an airtight case. She was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder, Martin Lester and her 2 previous husbands, plus fraud, forgery, and a host of other charges. The judge sentenced her to life without parole. Jesse McGuire, the intended 4th victim, sent Dennis a heartfelt thank you note and a donation to Emma's college fund. Perry fought to have Martin's real will recognized. The probate court agreed, invalidating the forged will. Emma received her trust fund. Perry received his share of the estate, and Diana's assets were seized to pay restitution to her other victims' families. 6 months later, on a warm June afternoon, Dennis and Emma stood in front of a small house in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't fancy, but it had a yard and a swing set and a room that Emma had already decorated with her art. This is ours, Emma asked, still not quite believing it. This is ours, Dennis confirmed. Bought with money from my new job and a little help from your trust fund. Fresh start. They'd both needed that. Dennis had started his consulting job, working regular hours, coming home every evening. Emma had transferred to a new school where no one knew her story, where she could just be a kid. Perry visited every few weeks, building a relationship with his niece, trying to make up for lost time. Mrs. Knapp had become a surrogate grandmother, the kind who baked cookies and told Emma she was special. And Emma was healing. She still had nightmares sometimes, still flinched when someone raised their voice. But she smiled more now, laughed more, drew pictures of happy families, and talked about the future. Dad, she said as they walked up to the front door. Thank you. For what? For believing me. For fighting for me. For showing me that I'm worth fighting for. Dennis knelt down, looking his daughter in the eyes. Emma, you listen to me. You are worth fighting for. You always were. And anyone who made you feel otherwise was wrong. You're smart, brave, kind, and strong. And I'm so proud to be your father. Emma threw her arms around his neck. I love you, Dad. I love you too, baby girl. Always. They stood there for a moment, father and daughter, survivors of a family that had tried to break them. But they'd survived. More than that, they'd won. Later that evening, after they'd started unpacking boxes and ordering pizza, Emma found a photograph she'd kept hidden. It was of Grandpa Martin, taken at her 8th birthday party. He was smiling, his arm around Emma, both of them laughing at something. Emma placed the photo on her nightstand. "Good night, Grandpa," she whispered. "We got her. We got justice for you." And somewhere, Dennis liked to think Martin Lester was at peace. The news cycle moved on, as it always does. Diana Lester became just another sensational story, filed away in the archives of true crime. Christine moved to another state, starting over with a new name. Chad divorced her, taking his sons and making it clear he wanted nothing to do with the Lester family drama. But for Dennis and Emma, the story had a different ending. Not a perfect one. The scars were still there, would always be there. But they had each other. They had a home. They had a future. And they had the knowledge that they'd done what was right, even when it was hard, even when it cost them. 3 days. That's what Dennis had told Emma. 3 days. And they'd show her grandmother what happened when you underestimated the people you hurt. It had taken longer than 3 days in the end. But they'd done it. They'd brought down a killer. They'd protected each other. They'd survived. And that was worth everything. On the first day of summer, Dennis sat on the porch watching Emma play in the yard. She'd made friends with the neighbor kids, was planning a birthday party for next month, talked excitedly about joining the school science club in the fall. Normal kid things. The way it should be. His phone buzzed. A text from Glenn. Saw the news. Diana's appealing her sentence. Won't go anywhere, but she's trying. Dennis typed back, let her try. We won. She lost. That's all that matters. Glenn, you did good, kid. Your daughter's lucky to have you. Dennis looked at Emma, still playing, still laughing, still being the amazing kid she'd always been. I'm lucky to have her, he replied. And it was true. Despite everything, the pain, the betrayal, the darkness they'd faced, Dennis considered himself lucky. Because he had Emma, and Emma had him. And together, they'd proven that family wasn't about blood. It was about love, loyalty, and fighting for each other when the world tried to tear you apart. That was a lesson Emma would carry with her for the rest of her life. And so would Dennis. 3 days to plan. 6 months to execute. A lifetime to remember. But they'd done it. They'd won. And in the end, that was all that mattered. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.